1894 marked the first ever motor race, held from Paris to the neighboring city of Rouen. But creating a championship, though, who needs that? They raced for another 56 years before finally setting up Formula One. What emerged was a championship like nothing else, with fierce competition amongst the world's elite drivers and constructors battling it out on track. But it wasn't as glamorous as it seems, because back then, small, privately owned teams produced the early cars with little regard for aerodynamics or human safety, and mechanical problems were common enough that most accidents ended in death. Your car could break down at any moment and send you to an inevitable end. Death was practically guaranteed, and we would all think no one is ever joining this. Wrong. The Formula One train charged forward at full steam. A governing body that we now call the FIA was established, and 81 drivers signed up to race in 1950, including the first ever world champion Nino Farina, an Italian driver racing for an Italian team that wasn't Ferrari. Alfa Romeo owned the first era of Formula One. Running alongside Ferrari, they drove pre-war car designs with engines mounted in front of the driver, and their budgets were so small they'd give Christian Horner an aneurysm today. The FIA decided Formula One was getting boring and introduced new regulations in 1954 that hurt the leading constructors and opened the door for a new team from Germany. Mercedes dominated 2 championships with Argentine driver Juan Manuel Fangio at the helm, but their reign came to a dramatic halt after the team's involvement in the deadliest motorsport crash in history. 84 people died in the 1955 Le Mans disaster, including Mercedes driver Pierre Levegh, and although no one was blamed for the crash, Mercedes withdrew from motorsport entirely for 34 years. Formula One sat wide open for the taking in the late 1950s after Mercedes fell. The United Kingdom seized the opportunity through the development of mid-engine cars that went on to crush the pre-war designs Italian teams were still using, and this led to 5 new British world champions, establishing Britain as the epicenter of Formula One innovation. 4 new races appeared during this period in Canada, the USA, Mexico, and South Africa as Formula One began expanding overseas. 2 drivers from this era would go on to establish their own teams. Bruce McLaren founded his in 1963, while Frank Williams followed in 1977, and both names became legendary in the sport. Endless crashes, regulation changes, and life insurance costs made Formula One expensive in the 1970s, but teams found a solution by allowing brands to advertise their products during races in exchange for fees. They'd advertise anything that paid well, from condoms to cigarettes to musicians, and even today, sponsorship remains a huge part of the sport. 2 iconic figures emerged for fans during this era, Niki Lauda and James Hunt, who became the faces of the sport in the mid-70s. Lauda represented professionalism and hard work, while Hunt represented cigarettes, champagne, and models, making him a bit of a legend. 1976 gave fans the closest title fight yet, with Lauda and Ferrari putting up a dramatic title defense against Hunt and McLaren. Lauda almost died in a crash at the Nürburgring, yet the championship still went down to the last race at the Japanese Grand Prix, where Hunt clinched his first and only title in the dying laps.
Our new world champion, James Hunt, by just 1 single point.
Being a constructor was challenging by the late 1970s because Formula One was racing on over 5 different continents, which was barely feasible for private teams. Each track controlled the advertising and prize money of individual Grands Prix, and the sport's governing body, the FISA, dictated all the rules, regulations, and commercial rights. That's when Bernie Ecclestone formed the Formula One Constructors Association, which leveled the playing field going into the ground effect era. New technology was introduced with the use of side pods. Brazilian Nelson Piquet was winning championships, and a couple of rookies arrived in town who can only be described with one word: greatness.
And look, this is absolutely sensational. He must have lost the lead to Senna. These 2 are the implacable rivals in Formula One, and you can see for yourselves what the situation is now. Mansell swarms around all over the McLaren.
Alain Prost and Ayrton Senna started their rise in Formula One during the mid-1980s, and Prost was simply sensational, winning the 1985 and 1986 championships with McLaren. Senna's driving style was so mesmerizing it captivated audiences worldwide. You'd think these 2 would make a great pairing at McLaren, but here's the thing. It led to a fierce rivalry instead, with 2 championships ending in dramatic fashion in Japan. Their battles defined an entire era of the sport. Williams developed a technology called active suspension in 1992 and used it to dominate the grid for 2 years, with Nigel Mansell and Alain Prost winning back-to-back championships. Formula One was set for one of its most exciting years yet, heading into the 1994 season. Senna moved to Williams to replace the retiring Prost. Newcomer Michael Schumacher was given a competitive car at Benetton, and Ferrari had hopes of a rebound year.
Senna bateu forte.
The 1994 San Marino Grand Prix remains to this day the most devastating weekend in Formula One's history. With 2 fatalities in 2 days, Roland Ratzenberger died in a crash at Imola during qualifying, and on lap 7 of the race, 3-time world champion Ayrton Senna experienced a steering column failure at a speed of 192 miles per hour, which resulted in a fatal crash at the Tamburello corner. The FIA believed Formula One cars were inherently safe despite the dramatic speed increases over the previous 8 years, but this proved to be a serious wake-up call. Williams personnel were investigated due to the belief that a mechanical failure caused the crash. Tragedy overshadowed 1994, but the season still delivered one of the closest title fights ever between Michael Schumacher and Damon Hill. Nothing separated the 2 drivers the whole season, and they arrived at the final race in Australia just 1 point apart. The race produced the 3rd controversial ending to a championship in just 5 years when the 2 made contact in a crash that was potentially caused by Schumacher knowing full well it would lead to his first world title. No action was taken against Schumacher despite all the controversy. 3 years later, he tried similar tactics when he did the same thing to Jacques Villeneuve at the 1997 championship finale and was publicly ridiculed by the mainstream media. This time, he was disqualified from the championship standings. 2000 brought a new millennium and a new era in Formula One, with the World Championship in the hands of McLaren and Mika Häkkinen, Michael Schumacher hunting his first title for Ferrari, and Formula One cars getting a new soundtrack through the introduction of V10 engines. No driver had won more than 2 titles in a row for over 4 decades at this point, but Ferrari and Schumacher were about to change that by winning 5 championships in a row. 2 title battles with Mika Häkkinen and Kimi Räikkönen came first, then 3 years of complete supremacy, where Ferrari finished the 2002 season with the same amount of points as every other team in the championship combined. Red Bull bought out Jaguar and joined the Formula One grid in 2005, while Renault had a superstar on their hands in Fernando Alonso, a 22-year-old Spaniard who pulled off moves that defied the laws of physics. Alonso was ready to end Ferrari's reign by becoming the youngest ever double world champion. McLaren went into the 2007 season wanting to be great again, with an all-new driver lineup and a brand new plan that would bring them championship success. Signing the defending champion Alonso and an inexperienced rookie was supposed to ensure no competition within the team. McLaren made a very slight error though, because instead of signing an inexperienced rookie, they signed Lewis Hamilton, who raced like a veteran from the start and sparked numerous debates and controversies at McLaren over the season. Spygate hit when the team was fined £100 million for being in possession of confidential Ferrari documents. Ferrari went on to win that season with Kimi Räikkönen in a twist of irony, although Hamilton would eventually win the following year with an overtake at the last corner of the final race.
2008, can Hamilton do anything? Can he run it up the inside of Vettel? Only a few corners to go now to become the 2008 Formula One World Champion, Lewis Hamilton.
New regulation changes by the FIA shaped the landscape of Formula One in 2009, and Braun GP used these regulations to produce a dominant car that brought title success to Jenson Button before the 3 teams with bigger budgets could catch up. Sebastian Vettel arrived next, and Red Bull gave him wings in the early 2010s. 4 consecutive world titles followed for the German, including 2 extremely close championship battles and 2 years of record-breaking dominance. And going into the turbo hybrid era, prime Vettel was simply unstoppable. V6 hybrid power units arrived in 2014 and led to a new era of dominance in Formula One when Mercedes returned after 55 years away. Supreme aerodynamics and phenomenal engine power came together in their car, which blew out all competition for several years. What this meant was conflict between their drivers, Lewis Hamilton and Nico Rosberg, in a rivalry people called the Civil War. Championships traded hands between the two as they dominated the grid for 3 years before Rosberg retired in 2016. Lewis Hamilton went on to win 4 more titles after that, and the team dominated the competition until the final year of the turbo hybrid era. Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton went through one of the closest and most grueling championship battles in history in 2021, and almost nothing split them the entire season. Some days Verstappen was ahead, some days Hamilton was ahead, some days they were side by side, and on one occasion they were on top of each other. Several crashes and controversies led up to the 2021 Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, where the championship went down to the wire and Max Verstappen won his first world title in a race that caused complete controversy and led to a change in Formula One's race directors going into the next season. New regulations appeared the following season, and another record fell when Max Verstappen won 15 races in a single season to take his second title. His dominance continued through 2023 and 2024 as he wiped the floor with the rest of the grid to take home his third and fourth title. And in 2025, he almost pulled off the greatest comeback in F1 history, losing the title to Lando Norris by 2 points. 2026 brought in the biggest regulation changes, with a complete overhaul of car design and power units. The hybrid system shifted to roughly a 50-50 split between internal combustion and electric power, while active aerodynamics replaced DRS, giving drivers movable front and rear wings, which they could adjust anywhere on track. Cadillac joined as the sport's 11th team, becoming the first new constructor since Haas in 2016, and marking a historic return of American manufacturing to the grid, with experienced drivers Sergio Perez and Valtteri Bottas leading the charge. That brings us up to today. 1894 to now, Formula One evolved from death-defying races on pre-war machinery to the pinnacle of motorsport technology. Eras of dominance from Alfa Romeo to Mercedes came and went. Legendary rivalries from Hunt versus Lauda to Hamilton versus Verstappen captivated audiences, and tragedies changed the sport forever. Have I covered every single driver and big event in Formula One's history? No, but this is the complete arc of how a single motor race became the global phenomenon we watch today. Hit that like button and subscribe for more Formula One content if you enjoyed this journey through Formula One history. Drop a comment below with your favorite era of the sport. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.